Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hunter, and this is
Chane Chat.
You may recognize me from my other channel, Hobby Goblin Studios, where I paint miniatures, build terrain, dioramas, and other cool nerd things for cool nerd games like Warhammer and D&D. You may also recognize me, and I'm quoting the chat here, as that majestic and calculated Chane player that's been on Mansant's streams a time or two. You may have also seen some of my alters on Mansant's channel. For example, his Quicken token and his Hope Merchant's Hood. But none of that is the reason why I'm here to talk to you today. No, in fact, today we're going to be talking about my good friend Chane, bound by Shadow. Before we get too deep, I just want to make this one thing very clear. This is not a deck tech. You will not be walking away from this with an 80 card list to bring to your armory event tonight. You will, however, walk away equipped with the tools and knowledge to create that list for yourself. A list designed for your own meta and your own playstyle. In future videos, I will be showing you a couple of lists that I've come up with for my own local meta. Chane has what is probably the most powerful hero ability in the entire game. Chane reads, once per turn action, create a Soul Shackle token. Your next Runeblade or Shadow action this turn gains Go Again. Go Again. And if you thought on-demand Go Again for any Shadow or Runeblade action was powerful, just wait, there's more. Each time you use this ability, you create a Soul Shackle token. But what exactly does that do for us? At the beginning of your action phase, banish the top card of your deck. But that can't be good, right? Wrong! Let's see some of those cards that turn that downside into all upside, baby. The core of any Chane deck, be it Blitz, Classic Constructed, Limited, or even Pit Fight, are cards that can be played from the Banish Zone. Any Chane deck should include at least some of the following cards. Bounding Demigod, red, yellow, or blue. This card costs 0 and says it may be played from Banish. So long as you've played a non-attack action this turn, and if it is played from Banish, it gets +1. Unhallowed Rites has the same non-attack action clause, but can also put non-attack action cards with Blood Debt back into your deck. Riftbind costs 1 and attacks for 3. However, if we play it from Banish, it gets +X, where X is the number of non-attack actions you have played this turn. Shadow Averser. This blue Majestic says you may play it from Banish, and as an additional cost, you may banish a card with Blood Debt from your hand. If you do, Shadow Averser gains Go Again. This is a great way to get cards like Riftbind and Bounding Demigod from your hand into Banish so that you can get that extra attack power. Ghostly Visit is a 1-cost attack for 4 damage that can be played from Banish, and that's just a pretty good rate. With the banning of Seeds of Agony, Howl from Beyond is the most playable non-attack action that can be played from Banish. There are a few other options here that see varying degrees of play, such as Piercing Shadow Vice, Seeping Shadows, Rip Through Reality, Rifted Torment, Tome of Torment, Mutated Mass for late game builds, and many others. But hang on a minute, what is this Blood Debt I was talking about? It sounds kind of scary, but honestly it's not. It's just an attempt at balancing the power of having access to many more cards than your opponent does. But really, it's just for show. At the beginning of your end phase, if you have a card with Blood Debt in your Banish Zone, you lose 1 life. And this stacks for every card with Blood Debt in your Banish Zone. So, if you have 3 cards with Blood Debt at the end of your turn in your Banish Zone, you will lose 3 life. But do you remember our nifty little hero ability? The one that gives our Runeblade and Shadow actions Go Again? Well, every single one of these cards that can be played from Banish and has Blood Debt also happens to be at least a Shadow card. So it's very unlikely that we're going to have too many, if any at all, in our Banish Zone at the end of our turn. But let's look at a couple other options we have for giving these cards Go Again so we can clear out our Banish Zones and take advantage of the fact that we have access to so many more cards. At the top of this list we have Shadow Puppetry. Give your next attack action a little bit of boost, and if it hits, you might just get to add to that sweet Blood Debt collection we're building up. A versatile card in Captain's Call. Choose 1. Your next attack, costing 1 or less in the case of yellow, gets +2. Or, your next attack costing 1 or less, again for the yellow one, gets Go Again. Mauvrian Skies gives your next Runeblade attack Go Again. If it hits, you can make 1, 2, or 3 rune chants, depending on the color of the Mauvrian Skies. And lead the charge in case you're worried about that Prism matchup, since this card creates action points, we can get around some of her tricks. Time Snap Potion is also excellent in this matchup for that very reason. Now, there are just 2 more cards we have to talk about before we're done talking about the core of any Chane deck. And those 2 cards are Chane's specializations, Soul Reaping and Art of War. Wait, what? You mean other decks can play Art of War? His other... Eclipse is the other specialization? Okay, so it turns out that Art of War is not just a Chane specialization. Anyone can play that card. Eclipse is the other one. But we're going to be talking about that card later. So for now, let's talk about what Soul Reaping and Art of War do for us. Soul Reaping is a legendary specialization, meaning you can only have 1 copy in your deck. It's an attack for 6 that costs 6. That's not very good. However, it has an alternate cost. You may banish 1 or more cards from your hand rather than pay Soul Reaping's resource cost. If you do, gain 1 resource for each card with Blood Debt banished this way. This is 2 separate clauses, meaning instead of paying 6 resources, we may banish any number of cards from our hand. Full stop. The card is paid for at this point. Then, if any of those cards happen to have Blood Debt, we generate resources. How busted is that? It also gets Go Again while attacking a hero with any cards in their soul, but this is usually not relevant. Just don't forget about it when you're playing against a Prism or a Boltyn. And now, onto our other specialization, Art of War. Art of War is almost certainly the best card Chane has access to. And it is an instant that reads, choose 2. Attack action cards you control get +1 attack and +1 defense this turn. Your next attack action card this turn gains Go Again. Until the end of turn, you may defend with attack action cards from your arsenal. You may banish an attack action card from your hand. If you do, draw 2 cards. Anytime you play this card, you will be choosing banish an attack to draw. If you do, you can banish an attack with Blood Debt that you can play from banish, effectively negating any downside. Then you'll either choose the Go Again or the +1 damage, depending on what cards you already have access to. Now that we have the core of the deck figured out, let's fill in the rest of those slots. Slots are mostly going to be filled up with generics or certain packages of cards that we'll go on to explain. Starting with generic attacks, our options are Flock of the Featherwalkers for additional Go Again in the form of Quicken tokens, Enlighten Strike for versatility and hand fixing, Command and Conquer to force blocks into aggro decks, and the Belittle package. This consists of some number of Belittle, an attack which allows you to reveal another attack with a base power 3 or less from your hand. If you do, you can search up a copy of Minnowism. This is useful for finding a blue card to pitch if your hand is hungry for resources, or a red Minnowism to deal an extra 3 damage. Running this package also means you should consider running more small attacks, such as Vexing Malice and Shrill of Skullform, blue or yellow. Other non-attack actions to consider would include Come to Fight for pumping up your attacks, but also for blocking, since most of the deck will block for 2, and it's nice to add in some 3 blocks. Nimbleism for pump if you don't care about blocking. Revel in Runeblood for more arcane damage, but be careful because it can be tricky to play 2 non-attack actions in a single turn. Whispers of the Oracle to fix future hands, but also to block or just be a blue pitch card. Dimensional Gateway for an aggro slant. Rattlebones for graveyard recursion. And anything else you think might be fun. Just make sure you have an even balance of attacks and non-attacks. Lastly, we have Eclipse to talk about. Ever since the banning of Seeds in Agony, rest in peace, Eclipse has become a little more tricky to get off. It used to be an auto-include and you would run it into any matchup. Nowadays, it is used only in fatigue matchups, but it is essential in those matchups. The package here includes Eclipse, Seeping Shadows, and 1 to 2 copies of Invert Existence. This way we have things that do not need to be given Go Again to help us get Eclipse off. If we're able to play 6 Blood Debt cards in a single turn, we're allowed to play Eclipse as an instant. This creates a ally token, Ursur the Soul Reaper. For us, Ursur is usually just a free 6 damage attack each turn. However, he can get benefits when playing against heroes that use their soul, such as Prism and Boltyn. I'll go into more detail on how exactly to play Eclipse and how it works in a future video, because a lot of people in the Discord have been asking, how do I play Eclipse? So for now, I'm just going to say, sideboard it in to fatigue matchups, leave it out when you're playing aggro. I really hope you guys were able to learn something from me here today, and I know I probably left out a ton of great cards. Hey there guys, just popping in from the editing desk here. I just wanted to say I realized I missed a lot of things in this video. I didn't even mention equipment and weapons for some reason, which is weird because we have a lot of options and they do a lot of powerful and unique things. So I'm thinking I'm going to do another video talking specifically about the weapons and equipment, going over a few lines, talking about why you want to use some versus others, and the different options that they open up. In addition to that, you already know I'm going to be doing an Eclipse video. That's next on the docket as soon as I finish this up. And then after that, we'll see where it goes. Alright, catch you next time. So, talk about those in the comments down below. I'd love to know what you guys are trying out in your Chane deck, and I'd love to know what you've seen others trying out. Chane is my absolute favorite hero and kind of the reason that I got into Flesh and Blood. So let's you and I make him the boogeyman that he used to be. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.